Welcome back to another episode of the Strength and Speed Podcast. I'm your host, Strength and Speed owner, and Mudgear Hannibal Race Pro, Evan Preparis. We've got two guests with us today. Before we get to them, though, a quick word from this episode's sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Hammer Nutrition. If you're interested in endurance racing, you're going to want to check out Hammer Nutrition. That's what I use for all of my fueling for endurance events. So I've used them for, I don't know, since 2014, I think was the first time I used them. And I've been using them since then. My favorite product of theirs is Perpetuum. It's a fat carb protein blend. That's what I fuel for things like World's Toughest Mudder. And then I also use their Heed product, Electrolyte, a carb drink mix, and then their gels. So you're going to want to check them out. I think my referral code / discount code still works, 240887. That's 240887. You can enter it on hammernutrition.com. And I think you get 15% off with that. So great product. If anyone has any questions about them, you're welcome to hit me up. I also recommend their REM caps. They help you sleep deeply, especially when you have a big race coming up. It's a little bit of melatonin, 5-HTP. You take that, you fall asleep real nice and good and deep, and then you're ready to race on race day. All right, let's get to today's guests. We'll have them say hi. Joining me, I have...
Hi, I'm Taryn Brees.
Taryn and
Weston Titus.
Yeah. There we go. So I'm going to touch on some of their bio, and then we'll kind of deep dive into some of the big stuff they have going on. So starting with Taryn, owns a group fitness trainer at 2 F45 training gyms, master's degree in kinesiology, specifically in the areas of human movement, performance, strength, and conditioning.
Yes.
Collegiate varsity volleyball player. Got involved in some obstacle course racing / endurance events. Specifically, Ultimate Suck, 36-hour event, a couple Spartan races, including Ultras, Spartan Hurricane Heat, 6 Go-Rec events, Mount Whitney Summit, and this summer is doing the Spartan Death Race.
That is true.
All true. All right, and Weston also got operates 2 F45 gyms, health and
Correct.
fitness. Kinesiology, college professor, finishing up sports performance PhD with a research focus on CBD and muscle recovery. Super interesting. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then done a whole bunch of endurance events, including Spartan Ultras, 6 trifectas, 2 Hurricane Heats, 6 Go Rucks, 1 Ironman, 2 half irons, and 4 Mount Whitney ascents. So welcome, you two.
Thank you.
Cool. So let's so much knowledge on the podcast. I'm not even sure where to start. Let's start. Yeah. Let's start off with, let's just jump right into Death Race right at the beginning, and then we'll jump back and cover some of your background a little more.
Yeah.
So I think most of our listeners know what Death Race is, but just in case they don't, give us like a couple minute summary of what Death Race is.
Okay, so I'll take this one. So the Death Race, as a lot of the things in the OCR world, right, is a little bit unknown. But in general, the Summer Death Race specifically is usually hosted in Vermont at Joe DeSena's family farm. And it's anywhere between 50 to 70 hours of anything they can think of. Rucking, farmer's carry, thousands of burpees, very little to zero sleep, really anything that they can think of that is going to break us mentally and physically. This year, there is a little twist. I'm not sure if this has been made public yet or just the potential participants know. They are extremely recommending that we go out 2 days before the actual event starts. And there's a military university out there called Norwich University that's about 40 minutes north of the farm. And they are doing an event for the first time they've ever run. We don't have a lot of information about it, but we are both signed up for that as well. It's a 2-day event leading straight into the Death Race. So we basically expect our Death Race total experience to be 5 or 6 days long. With not a whole lot of knowledge of what we're going into. We don't even have the equipment lists yet. We do know that we need to be good at chopping wood. That's kind of that's all we've been told.
Interesting. Yeah, it's So death race is what I call, it falls into what I call assessment and selection type events. So it's these unknown, length, time, or distance wise with a bunch of random challenges, kind of really pushing people's mental and physical limits. So you both seem to have a history of doing several of these, including like Go Rucks and Hurricane Heats. So
Yes.
why, I'm curious to know the why on both of them. So, why death race? Why not go for one of the other, events, selection type things? Yeah, we'll start there.
So for me, kind of winding back, so I was a collegiate volleyball player, and after I graduated college, I really didn't know what I was going to do. And with my life, I'd played sports my whole life, and now I'm not. So when I was getting my master's, there's this event, which you had mentioned, I completed the Ultimate Suck, which is a 36-hour long event. I volunteered for it 1 year during my master's program, and I was like, these people are crazy. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. So decided just to up and do it, completed it. And with that, then I fell in love with kind of the world of this ultra endurance or, selection death race kind of style, unknown events. And so for me, I think it's the unknown that just gets me, knowing that I will have to do whatever task or so is asked, and do that task, but also be able to be ready to do any other task for the next 36, 50, however many days, hours it's going to be. I think the body is an amazing thing. And so finding kind of the limits and being able to break through those limits and find new limits I get a kind of I don't know if it's an adrenaline rush and all this. I just get this high off of it that kind of just feels weird that I've never felt before. So for me, it's the unknown and the limits and seeing what I'm truly capable of doing.
Yeah. I mean, when you go through something that hard and that challenging, going through your endurance resume, right? You do get a feeling of accomplishment. I think that's why a lot of us just keep coming back, that sense of satisfaction when you cross the finish line.
Correct. And so now it's like, well, I did that, but what's next now? Like, how far can I truly go and find and feel and get that kind of feeling again?
Yeah, no, I completely get it. I think some of our listeners have heard me say this before, but for my background's in the military, so for when I tell some of my military friends, like, this is what civilians do for fun, they're like, what? No, that's not true. It's not true. And I'm like, I can start pulling up articles and video and pictures, and they're like, what is wrong with people? It's like, yeah, I get it. But it's just funny to hear that. What about you, Weston? Anything to add to that?
So, I mean, pretty similar. I came out of youth and high school playing team sports, and that was where then I kind of transitioned into Ironman. I didn't really know about Spartan or OCR at that point. So I made that transition from team sports to individual sports just because, when you're no longer in school, it becomes a lot harder to find a group of people, a team to consistently play with. So transition into those individual sports. I know we're not on video. I'm not really built for Ironman. I'm 6'5", 260. In my Ironman, it was kind of a joke. Like, I finished strong. I did well. But I have some pictures from the race or some of the halves that I've done where I'm, going for the jog, the marathon or the half marathon, and I'm next to someone that is literally half my size.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of fun. The OCR world, I'm still probably, I'm not going to podium. I just have too much body.
It's a lot of mass to move.
But it's mostly strength. It's strong, but that's so moving the objects, having some of those things, adding in like the rucks or the cinder block burpees or whatever it is. I feel like I am slightly better suited to the OCR world compared to marathon, Ironman, just lightweight running. But yeah, and mine's a little bit of the mental aspect too. As Taryn talked about finding the limits of the physical body and training the physical body, that part's awesome too. But I also really enjoy kind of the finding the darkness and not letting it overwhelm you, staying optimistic, having some fun with it. I know I've gotten some weird looks at some of the events when it's 2 a.m. and whoever's leading the event, depending upon what is going on. And, it's all right. You're going out 4 inches into the water and you're doing 100 burpees. And I kind of start to laugh and cheer everyone on. And everyone else is at this weird kind of dark place. And I'm like, you just have to, like, we're just going to get it. We're going to get through it. And finding that mental grit is really what I love about this sport and why I'm pushing it to the death race for this summer.
Gotcha. Well, if it was a year or two ago, I would encourage you to sign up for Tough Mudder's Infinite Hero Honor Challenge because I was the one behind running that program for the last 2 years. But they not apparently, they did cut it this year, so it is currently no longer a thing. But if you want a different type of experience, start shooting Tough Mudder some emails and messages to do that. So that, just like Hurricane Heat has a very Spartan flavor and death race where there's a lot of burpees and stuff, the Infinite Hero Challenge has a Tough Mudder flavor. So just like it's a little more, I'm gonna say fun, but there's still a lot of challenges and a little friendly. There's no burpees. That was one of my rules. But it was kind of team building and physically challenging, and it takes about 8 to 10 hours typically. So
gotcha.
Nice.
But
yeah, sounds good.
It's no longer going on, but maybe we can bring it back. We'll see.
Right?
You do have both of you have a deep pedigree in kinesiology and background. So what do you do to train for something like this? And how much of it's physical, I would say, and then I guess how much of it's mental. So just kind of expand on your training specifically for this upcoming death race.
So that's one of the things that I think we both really like about it, but it's also one of the things that's the most challenging, right? Because we could show up and even with an equipment list on an event like this, there's no reason that we have to use all of the equipment or that they don't have a shed full of other equipment and it's all just like a red herring.
Yeah.
So the training is extremely varied in terms of odd objects. We have, as we talked about before we hit the record button, we just went down and picked up a nice and heavy tire for tire flips and sledgehammer hits. And we've got a driveway full of wood that we're chopping, and we have Atlas stones in the front yard, but we also have rucks and we do different ruck lengths. And basically we never do the same workout twice, and we just try and balance the amount of volume that we're putting our bodies in to be physically prepared, but also be able to recover so that we can push tomorrow, because this is definitely not a sprint event. So if we do 300 burpees today, maybe tomorrow we do a 20-mile ruck, but then the next day we do Atlas stone moves. There's a lot of weight, object movements, volume in terms of burpees, push-ups, pull-ups, but you mix and match those kind of around so that you can recover one part of your body while still pushing the other parts while maintaining a healthy balance of recovery and not overuse injuries.
Gotcha. Do you take complete rest days during your week, like a normal training week? Like, are any of your days complete rest days, or are you always doing some sort of active recovery or something like that?
I would say we try to. So Weston and I are both coaches. So Monday through Friday, we are always coaching classes. So with that, we do use those actual class times. So we could be coaching 3 to 7 classes. So that's 3 to 7 hours out of our day. So Monday through Friday, we don't, but for sure on the weekends, I would say we usually do one crazy long, if it's a long ruck, if it's a 4 to 6 hour workout. And then after those long workouts, that's when we would usually have a full day of recovery. And that's going to look more like a hot tub. We may do some swimming of laps and stuff, but we're still trying to move, but it's very more active recovery, very, very low stretching days and stuff like that.
So go for it.
I was going to say, just for the listeners, the classes Taryn was talking about are F45 classes. So if you're not familiar with that, you could kind of think of a CrossFit class. That's not a great actual response, but just in general. So it's a circuit training hit company that I own, and we run 2 locations here. But that means that we're going in and every hour we're demoing movements and correcting people and possibly leading warm-ups or showing modifications. So even when we are, quote, not working out ourselves, one of the major things that we do with a big portion of our day is still very physically active. So there are times when we get back from coaching 4 classes in a row and we might have demoed, 55 bodyweight squats. And while that's not a ton, it's still not nothing. So for me, my recovery days, it's not always a Sunday or it's not always a Wednesday. I would say it's about every 10 days, but it comes more to when it's time to go work out and I'm just not feeling it. Like it's not that I'm sore, it's that I'm not motivated or I'm not looking forward to it. And I usually know that it's time to maybe either take an easy day or cut the weight or the mileage or whatever, or maybe go do some mobility stuff. And because an injury at this point, we're 49 days away from the death race or something. So an overuse injury would be way more detrimental to our performance than skipping 1 day of training.
Yeah. And you I did not mention it in your bio, but you guys are engaged, so congratulations.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
what you both have backgrounds in kinesiology, right? So who is one of you doing the program and the other one's following, or do you alternate, or is it just kind of a consensus we're going to talk out and figure out? I feel like with both of you with such a depth of knowledge, it might be like some friction there on what we're doing for training each day.
I don't think there's too much friction in our personal training. I think a lot of times someone comes up with an idea. Maybe we saw something on Instagram in terms of, we've never used a tire like this, or we have, through all of these events that we've done, we have quite a few friends that we either chat with or follow them on Instagram or something. So if they post a workout, maybe it's something we want to try or modify. Our days don't overlap perfectly. So sometimes Taryn might work out in the morning and I work out in the afternoon. We do work out a lot of times together doing the same thing, but there are certainly 2 or 3 days of the week where I get a 2 or 3 hour ruck in and she has done 3 F45 classes instead, just because, or the other way around, just because of how our schedules lined up that day. So we don't have a list that we're following a perfect set of programming. We are kind of making it up as we go.
And it's kind of fun because then we each have different ways to, I guess you'd say, torture each other. We kind of throw different crazy ideas out, because right, we've got to be able to get comfortable with being kind of uncomfortable, because we're going to be in many situations during the death race that it's just going to suck. So during our training, coming up with something that's just going to be brutal and awful is like, well, this is what we're doing today. I just came up with it. So good luck. I know, even if you don't want to do it, you're going to have to.
Yeah. I found like the more I program too, the more, like earlier in my athletic career, I feel like I functioned a lot better with like strict written out plans. And as I've started racing more and just been more familiar with the principles of, recovery and training, I feel like winging it on some, like having a couple of days earmarked and listening to my body tends to work better for me as I've kind of gotten older. But
yeah, I definitely agree. If there's anyone listening that they're going into their first hurricane heat or something like that, then finding maybe a guide or something online or following some good programming is probably better than just trying to make it up every day when they roll out of bed. But the two of us combined have been doing this for so many years now and seen so many different methods of madness in these events that we're pretty good at making up the events for ourselves kind of in our backyard or neighborhood to make it work.
Gotcha. So one of the things we like to do on the podcast is ask people about some of their training background and specifically lessons we can pull from that and pull into obstacle course racing, or in this case, maybe the endurance type racing you guys are doing. So we'll start with Taryn.
Yeah.
Anything we can pull from volleyball that you think applies to obstacle course racing or endurance racing?
So yes, the big thing I would probably pull from my personal volleyball career, I am 5'7", 5'7.5", maybe, whatever, but so I'm not a super tall person, but I wanted to be a hitter. And if I was going to go to college, I needed to really, they're looking for tall people to be a hitter. And so I needed to jump out of the gym. So if that's what I wanted to do, that's what I needed to be the best at doing. And so for me, dialing in kind of what I wanted to be good at, be the best at it. So I worked on my jump and was able to not just let my height or something that would keep me from becoming the best at. Yes, I didn't have control of my height, but I had control of being able to be good at jumping and be the best at it. And so I would say, right, in OCR, grip strength is huge, right? Doesn't matter your height, your weight or so, but if you want to be good at OCR, you're going to have grip strength. So finding that thing that you want to be, do OCR is great. Then it doesn't matter what age, height, weight you are at, work on your grip strength, become better at one thing that you do have control in. So that's what I would say is it's more finding what you can control and being best at it or being better at it than your colleague next to you or the people you're competing against versus always looking at what you don't have control on. Because that's, you have no control of it. You can't change anything when you can't there. So that's what I'd say I'd pull from volleyball, at least from my college and my personal career.
Yeah, I love it. No, I'm totally on board with, controlling what you can control and not worrying about stuff you have no control over,
Sure.
So I think that's a huge lesson to take away. Weston, same question, but try to focus more on if you have a basketball one. I know you played some basketball in your background.
Yeah, I played some basketball. I think let's see, we can take this a little bit on the mental side since I said that's what I focus on, right? So going from a team sport, not all of these events are going to be team-based. Some are going to probably specifically individual. But in many of these events that we've done, they kind of force leadership or team building, communication, especially teamwork. So I think figuring out a way to be a leader, but also be able to take communication and input from someone who maybe isn't naturally a very good leader or communicator. If it's, we're cycling through who's leading the group and everyone else is blindfolded or something, and the person who doesn't really want to be the leader, it's their time to lead, understanding and giving them some motivation and understanding that problems happen, or maybe giving them some examples on things that they can work on, as well as being a good leader yourself with that teamwork and communication is always going to be key in a lot of these events, because that's really what most of them push, especially at I don't want to say beginner level, because even like a 4-hour hurricane heat ride is still physically quite daunting for probably everyone who's signed up for it. But on those events, I think a lot of the companies, that's how they kind of sell them to the public, is teamwork, building of character, building of communication skills while under stress. So taking that from a team sport like basketball, where being able to know what your teammate's going to do and talking and staying in communication in stressful situations is really key, and working on that ability to do it.
Gotcha. Yeah, good input there. With your background, so from, I don't know how many OCR clients per se you have, but from what you've seen online as far as people training, anything you can pull out, like, all right, I see a lot of OCRs doing X, Y, or Z, which is not ideal to prepare for obstacle course racing, and they should be doing, an A, B, and C. Any any thoughts on like the way people are training, or do you have any visibility on that for specifically for
I
obstacle course racing? Yeah.
I mean, I think one of the things that I've noticed, and this might be not the best answer, but since we're put on the spot, I think I see a lot of people, right, posting their snapshots of Strava or Apple Watch or whatever it is that they're tracking their distance or time with, whether it's a run or a ruck or farmer's carry. And they're just not going far or fast enough, or they're just not doing the volume. But maybe they're not training for a 50-hour event though either. But a lot of times I see people like, say, the 12-hour Go Ruck Tough Challenge. That's kind of Go Rucks. That's what they started with. That's kind of like, I feel like maybe a pretty good, solid middle point. Like that's a standard one of these events. And people are doing 45-minute training sessions for a 12-hour event. I think that's what I would recommend to people is, even if it's not high intensity or necessarily hard, again, in quotes, but you just need to practice being on your feet for as many hours as the event's going to be, or staying awake or something like that. It would be like if you had someone who was training for a marathon, but they only ever ran 1 mile.
Yeah.
I think that's what I see a lot of people training for, is doing really high intensity stuff. They're going to do 400 burpees as fast as they can, but that's all the training they're doing on a Saturday because it was so hard and now they're wiped out, but they're training for a 12-hour event.
Yeah. Now I'm a big fan of volume, right? Like for me personally, the times I've PR, even when I was training for like road running, I PR'd my 5K road run times when I was training for a marathon because my aerobic volume was so big that I could run a lot faster. And yeah, time on feet's huge. So, you know, for special forces selection, a lot of times they give us a training pamphlet, a suggested training pamphlet. And I used to always tell people, like, make sure you do all the long rucks in there, again, because you need to get used to standing on your feet. And time on feet matters a lot. And I think with both of your jobs, just standing around even in the gym, that's like a good solid base to start off on. And then if you go for long workouts in addition to that, right now you're essentially starting on tired feet. And
yeah,
I think
I get done coaching in a day and I've walked easily and not even stepped outside to go on a walk, has easily collected 20,000 steps on my watch. And I hadn't even intentionally gone out for a walk anywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we actually use our coaching classes, and we'll coach with weight on, right? Because a lot of these events too as well, especially when it comes to the death race or even during my 36-hour event, I had to get used to being under load for a long duration of time as well. So when I'm coaching, when either of us are coaching and we're coaching 3 to 7 classes, that's 3 to 7 hours that could be used for training. And so there'll be times we'll throw a weight vest on or we'll throw a pack on while coaching classes just to be under load during that time of 3 to 7 hours in that day.
Gotcha. Good stuff. All right. Weston, I'm going to jump back over to you let's talk a little bit about CBD. You said you're doing research focused on CBD and muscle recovery. So, CBD, relatively new product in the athletic world. I watch people advertise and promote brands and they're like, this fixed my knee. It helps me sleep deeper. It helps me stay awake longer. It's like, it seems to do everything. So, can I get a sneak peek at some of your research and kind of what do you see the benefits or maybe some of the drawbacks of? So as a military member of the military, we're not allowed to use CBD right now. So they say we can't use it because, may contain trace of THC if you get a not reputable company, and then you lose all your benefits, etc. So
yeah, let's start with maybe the shady side of CBD in terms of, yes, WADA has taken CBD off its ban list. So an Olympic athlete can technically train with and perform while using CBD products. But basically everyone, exactly, sounds like is the military as well, Olympic level, professional level, they are still recommended not to touch CBD products because the quality control of most companies in the United States is just non-existent. So the chance that you're getting a product that has THC in it and possibly a lot of THC in it is definitely not zero. I don't want to say likely. There have been a couple studies on this, but I would say it's fair to guess that your product that you're using, on your knee that hurts or something that's a CBD lotion probably has some THC in it. Or if that bottle doesn't, the next bottle you buy from the same brand might. So that's definitely a big thing because right in the United States, our supplements are not federally regulated. So there are some quality control issues that are certainly a hurdle to pass when we're talking about CBD as an athletic supplement that's either going to help recovery or reduce pain or help extend endurance, which theoretically it has the potential to do all of those things as well as maybe possibly help you sleep better. It is always kind of a red flag when there's one product that says it's going to, make you faster, stronger, sleep better, in less pain and grow muscle more. Like, no matter what that product is, it probably is a red flag, right? There's not too many things that are that good. So that's kind of the shady side of CBD. The cool side of CBD is, like you said, this is relatively new. I think there was only about 5 studies, maybe 6 in the whole world that have been researched and published looking at the effects of CBD in a sports environment in terms of improving athletic performance. Most of those metrics look at some type of pain recovery after exercise. So you go work out, you lift really heavy at the gym, you come home, you put some type of topical lotion on your muscles, or you're taking a CBD capsule for some hope of pain recovery. So then the next day you can go back and train and you don't feel as sore. That's probably what most products are marketed at right now. There's also the sleep side of it. So, you're sleeping better, you're recovering better through all of the real things that sleep helps with recovery. Then you can train either more volume or weight or whatever the next day. My research is looking at the performance in recovery. So our first study, we are doing some muscle damage. So we're making people extremely sore that aren't used to working out. And we're doing some testing whether CBD is decreasing muscle pain, muscle soreness versus a placebo. So some muscle soreness. And then in the future, we are planning at looking at CBD during an event. So we're putting people on a bike for some controlled endurance performance, and we're going to give them the same idea, some CBD versus a placebo, to see if a trained individual can ride or perform better while taking CBD right before or during an event, to see if that pain minimization during the event kind of tricks them into thinking that their muscles aren't as tired or as sore as they actually are, so they can push a little bit harder or push a little bit longer during an endurance event. Right now, we don't have the results from those things. But most likely, what I think we'll end up seeing is that a product that's something like 95% CBD, 5% THC is going to be kind of the magic bullet, which unfortunately means it's out, at least right now, while THC is federally illegal. Military, right, then that means it's not good to go for the military. It's still banned. It would still be banned for WADA, so higher level athletics. But your recreational athlete, your guy next door that is, trying to work on his deadlift in his garage gym. Which no shade on that at all. That's basically us. They might have a product that can help them, and the understanding of why CBD and THC kind of unlock each other, we don't quite know yet. There's some research into it, but this is a relatively new area of research, especially on the athletic side, which is why I am so excited to be doing my PhD on it, because it's a lot different than doing some studies on things that have been known or thought to have been really well understood for the last 100 years. You really have to carve out kind of a unique niche. Okay. My research in this field, because it's relatively unknown, could be setting kind of the foundation for a lot of future research. So even when I finish my PhD, we might not have specific answers for how much CBD, what level of milligrams, how often should be taken. Is it relative to body weight? Is it relative to gender? There'll be a lot of other researchers coming behind me to hopefully answer those questions and nail down the details. My research is kind of poised to just theoretically prove that CBD has promise in the field, or not. I mean, my research could all be negative, and then it's not necessarily dead in the water. Someone might come back later and say, I didn't know what I was doing, and they're going to try something slightly different. But answers are probably still 3 or 5 years away if you're talking about real specific. Like if you're a man that weighs 185 pounds and you do strength training, I need to be taking, 50 milligrams of CBD every day, morning and night, with a meal. If you want that level of detail, we're 3 to 5 years away at least.
Gotcha. No, that's fascinating, and I'm glad. I've been wanting to touch on CBD for a while now, but I couldn't quite find the right person to come on and talk about it, because there's the brand is obviously if I get a brand person, they're gonna be like, yeah, you should do it because that's literally how I make money. Or if I get a sponsored athlete again, I usually just grab sponsored athletes, but again, with it being so new, I didn't want to grab them because a lot of times they're like, no, it works because the brand told me it works, and I have a great placebo effect that says it works. So,
oh yeah,
so I appreciate all your insight. That was really good.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad.
Cool. Anything to add, Taryn? Any opinion from your side?
Not when it comes to CBD. I did do, especially with this being strength and speed, I actually did a thesis over power and strength and how it was affected over a long duration of time. So the Ultimate Suck event, before I actually completed and participated in the 36 hours, I did my research over the participants in one of the years. So we could talk about that if you'd like.
Sure, yeah. Give us a quick rundown.
It was
always
cool.
interested in sciencey stuff.
It's not something that can just be related back to the general population, but it does. I looked at power and strength. So when it came to power, I looked at vertical jump. When it came to strength, I did grip strength and back strength, just to kind of see throughout a full 36-hour event, at what point is there a specific time that everything kind of just drops off and gets to a point where it just gets into maintenance mode, and that's where it stays, and there is no recovery no matter what you do during that 36-hour event, or again anything longer than kind of that 24 hours. I will say a couple of the points, it was 5 years ago or so I did it, but a couple of the points that I remember, on the vertical jump, I had somebody who was on so much adrenaline rush that they finished, when they got done with the 36-hour, they came over and jumped higher than they did at the very beginning baseline test, just because they were so much adrenaline in them and so stoked just finishing that they jumped higher, which that was pretty cool. That was like, from there though, when it came to the actual power and strength version of it, anything after 24-hour mark does not, from my study, it was a small sample size, but never recovered. So Back strength, grip strength, and vertical jump dropped after the 24 hours, and you saw no recovery back from that. The grip strength beforehand would show recovery back and forth depending on what tasks they were doing. So like if they were carrying buckets and stuff for a while, their grip would drop, but it would always recover back up after, a couple of hours off of grip. But after 24 hours, it never showed any recovery after that. The back strength, I will say, did drop quickly within the first 12 hours, actually within the first 6 hours. And then after that, it just stayed in a maintenance mode and never recovered or got any worse, though, which was kind of cool to see. So those are a couple of little tips and stuff well, at least what I found from my strength and power thesis I did.
Cool. What was your sample size, just out of curiosity?
I want to say if I remember, it was like around 20 people.
Oh, that's more than I was expecting. That's pretty good, actually. I'm impressed.
It was enough to at least be able to like say, okay, the data, shows what it is showing is maybe good versus it being, like 5 people and you're like going off of, well, this is just how this person feels.
Yeah. So I did when I was in college, we did a sleep study where we kept people awake for, I can't remember how long it was, 24 hours? I think it was 24 hours. And we had one group taking like tests, but just kind of sitting around. And the other group was exercising. I can't remember the details because it was almost 20 years ago at this point. But they were exercising periodically and doing the test to see if like physical activity would hurt their test scores more than the group that was just sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah.
So I somehow convinced my my military fraternity to volunteer for the sample size. So I think we probably had like 7 people in each group.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just like, we were like hanging around. I can't believe everyone like did this. I mean, we didn't pay them anything. They was just like, let's go hang out all weekend and stay awake. And you're not allowed to sleep. And like a couple of them were like we had one of my friends, she like snuck off to the bathroom to try to take a nap and people are like yelling at her.
Calling her out.
But the interesting similar things happened where like some people would get really excited about stuff and do like some people's test scores went up at the end. It was like, what?
Yeah.
And then some people for like I was part of the experiment because our sample sizes were so small.
So small.
We had some other people that were helping administer it. And for me personally, I found that like I would exercise and I'd be like super wide awake afterwards. I'd feel like really sharp. And the second I kind of like might cool down and kind of relax for about 30 minutes, I mean, I would just get incredibly sleepy, right? Like falling asleep standing up and falling asleep anytime you like stop moving.
Yep.
It was like riding a roller coaster for 24 hours, where you're like, now I'm tired. And but it was a fun experiment and it was cool. And with some of your research there, from as someone who's done, I don't know how many 24-hour OCRs at this point, but what you said feels accurate to me from my sample size of 1, my personal experience.
Correct.
My back strength kind of going into like a steady state and not necessarily getting much worse, especially like, I mean, typically when I'm doing the endurance obstacles, if I can do them for 12 hours, I can do them for 24 typically. So
that was, I think out of all of it was probably the coolest thing to see that the back, like within the first like 6 to 12 hours, it dropped, it dropped significantly. But then after that, no matter what they did, no matter if like, I think at the closer to the end, the last like 8 hours, they had to do like a 13-mile like ruck with 50 plus pounds in their back. So you would think that would just smoke it, but it just maintained and it would never, and for most people, it did never drop any lower, but it never recovered back once it did drop. So it just kind of,
fascinating.
Body's kind of cool in that way.
Cool. That's cool to hear. Like some of the research backs up some of my personal experience. So.
What you feel. Yeah.
Yeah. So with Spartan, or with Death Race, excuse me, is this a, I mean, obviously it may change after you finish or participate, whatever we're calling it, right? Like, is this a bucket list? Like, this is my Mount Everest. Like, this is the thing I'm like top priority, or do you see this as like, oh, this is a stepping stone to something else, or, maybe doing multiple death races, or kind of what does the future hold?
So the death race, this is going to sound crazy. but it was kind of what I wanted to do for my birthday this year. And it's not even a big birthday. I don't know what it was, maybe in like around Thanksgiving last year. I looked over at Taryn and I was like, I think I want to do the death race this summer for my birthday. And so that's what we've done. Spartan also has an agoge, which I don't know if you've ever talked about, but it's about as equally long in duration, but it has more cultural immersion, like bushcraft survival, more like learning how to start fires and tying knots to hold chickens in a pen and learning how to shoot bow and arrows from some tribe in the country that you're visiting. They always do it internationally, and they usually do it in a November-ish. And I think, depending upon the exact time, that will be happening this year for us as well, probably as our honeymoon.
Amazing.
So wherever they decide, which they don't announce it but maybe 2 months before the actual event. So wherever that they decide it's going to be at might just be where our honeymoon is at.
But next year we might try GoRuck Selection. So that's a 48-hour event. I don't know. I don't know if there's really much more room up in terms of, I guess we could go faster and compete in podium at like the Spartan Ultras and things. I know we want to get, at least as far as my knowledge, is like the death race, the agoge, possibly GoRuck Selection, some of those like flagship events that these companies run. Once we complete those, so if we don't finish the death race this year, I would say it's 99% chance we'd be back next year for it. I don't see us stepping away from this world really, but I could see us taking a year off and not traveling as much, like just doing the events that are within driving distance or something, and then maybe hopping back into the big ones. This isn't an Everest for us. It's not necessarily a bucket race, but it's also not really a stepping stone. It's kind of what we do for fun, and it's at the level of intensity or hardness that there's a possibility that we fail, so that makes it interesting to us. Like, we're just not going to run Spartans. We're not going to do 50 Spartan sprints this year because there's no chance of failure, so it's not fun.
Yeah, I get you. No, makes sense. We've had Christina Armstrong on the podcast before talking death race, and we've had Ronald Tortola talking, I don't know, every endurance event that he had done, which was a lot. Are you familiar with Ronald?
No, not off the top of my head.
Okay, he's based in Texas, so you may not have crossed paths as much. And then I've read Tony Mattisi's book, Legend of Death Race, as well. So
that's what they Spartan started I think that's what they started their death race podcast on, was that book. It was episode 1, I think.
Okay. Nice. All right. Anything we need to touch on before we let you two go?
I have a question for you, actually.
Yeah,
as you were Special Forces.
Yeah.
Still
am. I got about a year left.
Oh, still am.
I retire in a year, yeah.
The only thing that I'm nervous about with these events ever is the sleep deprivation. And I know you said you ran your study, and I actually done a little bit of sleep deprivation study in my academic past as well. But my real quick spiel on this is, as functional adults with jobs and a business to run and training to do tomorrow and a dog to take on a walk and laundry to do and stuff, it's hard for us to realistically have, like, next weekend we're not gonna sleep, right? Like for us to wake up on Friday and to plan to not sleep Friday night, that might be doable. We'll actually not sleep next Friday night. We have a GoRuck event, 75-miler in DC. It's their first one. But for us to actually just like incorporate not sleeping over the weekend into our training really makes Monday hard, especially health consequences of not sleeping properly, circadian rhythm problems, recovering from the volume. So how do you either as a podcast host that you've interviewed a ton of different people on, or special forces member, how do you train for staying sharp, staying physically capable
Yeah.
with no sleep?
So I would say it's like riding a bike. If you've done it enough times before, you will not have a problem when it's go time again.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you've experienced it a couple times,
Mm-hmm.
it'll just come back to you, right? The ability to function with very little sleep will come back. I don't think it's something that needs to be retrained repeatedly. Like if you've done it a couple times in college, you've obviously had a pretty good endurance resume here, right? Like I think you've got it. I would not even be concerned about that. I'd be focused, like you said, on the benefits of sleeping a lot especially leading up to the event. Those last couple weeks, just get as much rest as you can, especially, like as kinesiology, like you understand the importance of tapering, right? And resting. So, you really want to, for a lot of athletes, you need to think of sleep as part of your workout, right? Like that is, especially those last 2 to 3 weeks, that your workout is sleeping. Like if you're given a choice between getting up and going for a couple mile run because that's part of your schedule, like no, sleep in, do the run later in the day. And if it doesn't happen later in the day, who cares? You've already put the money in the bank, right? Like the investment's already there. And then there's something there's something at Ranger School we call leadership energy, right? So when you are, and maybe you've experienced this at some of the Go Ruck type stuff where they rotate who's in charge. But if you're just like a pawn, just kind of going through the motions and you don't really have any responsibility, a lot of times it's a lot easier to fall asleep and start droning. And it's just hard to stay focused. But when someone puts you in charge, all of a sudden you are hyper aware and hyper focused, and you are capable of staying awake and being attentive much more than the average person in the group. So that's just something we personally experience when we go through a lot of these training courses. The only problem with that is, like I talked about with the sleep study, the second they pull you out of the leadership responsibility, those people shut down so hard. So there's like an unwritten rule that if you're in a leadership position in Ranger School, and because those are typically assigned for grading, when they put you back into a normal duty position, there's a couple of leadership positions that are not graded. As a general rule, you never put someone who just came out of leadership back into a non-graded leadership position because they're smoked. Their body is just completely destroyed. And your brain, like you can take short naps and your brain doesn't realize it was only asleep for a couple of minutes and then wake up and feel refreshed. And it's not the same as sleeping a long time, but you can fool yourself for short periods where you're like, oh, Mom, I slept for 4.5 minutes. I am refreshed. And, we talked about a lot of the power of mind and mindset, and it totally works. It's just, and like you said, just like with your strength study, there's a point when you don't really get any worse, like similar with like extreme sleep deprivation. I feel like there comes a point where you're just kind of stumbling around, and your body will naturally go through waves where sometimes you'll be almost completely useless. Yeah. And someone's literally like has to drag you around and you don't know. I mean, I've been on security like during practice missions at Ranger School and had absolutely no idea where I was. Like if I didn't have a buddy with me, I couldn't even tell you where we left our platoon. Like I know they were behind me. I can tell you like a 180 arc where they were, but I could not even point in a general direction beyond that.
I like that. That'd make a good morale patch for some of the bags. Almost completely useless.
Yeah. So
right on the back of the bag.
So special forces assessment selection, you are tired a lot and you do start droning. But Ranger School is the ultimate drone fest. I mean, people are, just completely useless. It's a disaster. And it's funny at graduation, they do a Rangers in Action demonstration where they showcase like, essentially the instructors getting out of a Zodiac, a boat, and then they like rappel and stuff like that. And as students, we always used to laugh is because like, we didn't look anything like that during our missions, for like our practice missions. I mean, you got 550 cord hanging off of you because your weapon is tied to you. You're like falling over, you're dragging things. Some dude's asleep on the boat and you got to like wake him up. I mean, it is such a disaster, but it shows that regardless of how bad you are, there's always that baseline level of like functioning where you can, it's not going to look pretty, but you can get by.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a maybe not so short answer of it.
All right.
Hopefully that helps.
I'm glad I asked. I'm looking forward to being almost completely useless.
Yeah. And it'll come in waves, right? So, you know, just if you're falling asleep and you still have another 30 hours left, man, just ride the struggle bus for a couple hours, and then your body will, like, the sun will rise and you'll feel better, and then you'll be like, all right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
And sleep a lot, obviously, the week beforehand. Yeah, I can't stress that enough. I just can't stress that enough. And those REM caps I mentioned, or if you have melatonin or something, especially the night before. So I typically don't take any of that stuff when I go to bed because I have no problem falling asleep. I have problems staying asleep. So I'll fall asleep, wake up 3 hours later, then take the melatonin, the REM caps, and that'll knock me back out. And I typically put on like a documentary or something with a lot of long pauses, and it takes my mind off the impending race and allows me to focus on something else. So just some personal tips.
Awesome. Thanks.
No, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So one last question before we officially let you go, or I guess two more questions. So tell us something people would be surprised to know about you. And it can be anything you want. The more random, the better, typically.
Okay, I'll go first. The one thing that usually is probably random or surprises most of my members at our studios and stuff is because I am so physically active and stuff, I don't like vegetables. I've tried all vegetables and I just do not like them. I'm a meat and potatoes person. I can't even eat carrots. I don't do salads. I have tried incorporating and eating and tricking my mind into it, but I just literally throw them up each time. Vegetables are disgusting.
Do you actually throw them up?
I don't throw them up, but I will force them down, but I can't get through.
It makes you it's like nauseating.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I can't get through. My mom, even when I was a kid, used to hide like a pea and like a spoonful of cottage cheese and stuff. Just random one spoon, and I would upchuck the one spoon that she put the pea in.
What about smoothies? Can you do like smoothies and it's mixed with fruit?
That's the only way I can trick myself in is by tossing, but it has to be a bunch of fruit in it. Like I can throw spinach in there, but if I drink a smoothie that tastes like a vegetable, like we've tried to juice vegetables, I can't. All of them are nasty to me.
Interesting. That's a good
one.
That's a good one.
Weston, what do you got?
First of all, it's true. I've tried to cook her like Brussels sprouts in bacon and stuff, and she just eats all the bacon out and leaves all the Brussels sprouts. So it's true. Let's see. For me, most random fact about me is I am a secret nerd. I don't know. Maybe as a college professor, that's not that weird, but
good
playing
company.
video games, Magic the Gathering, cards. I don't know. For someone who's going out and doing like 1,000 burpees for a workout, then I come home and enjoy nerding out with my nerd friends.
Nice. Favorite. So I've played Magic, I think like once or twice, so not my forte, but I do love nerdy stuff. What are some of the other like genres or brands rather? You like Star Wars, Lord of the Rings?
Oh yeah, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Star Wars, but yeah, so those books and movies, video games. I did play a lot more video games when I was a little bit younger. I don't have as much time on my schedule for it now, but a lot of League of Legends, played a lot of Halo and Call of Duty.
Nice.
Good stuff.
So again, you're in good company. I'm a big nerd here. When we were filming Ninja Warrior, I had a day off, and I went to Disneyland specifically to go to Galaxy's Edge, and it was like the greatest day of my life. 40-year-old adult male walking around by himself, just like smiling like an idiot. I spent like 3 hours in Galaxy's Edge just like drinking blue milk and the green milk and building. It was seriously one of the best days ever. I had so much fun.
That's fun.
That's
Yeah,
great.
that's great.
All right. Any final shout outs you want to give? Friends, family, sponsors, etc.
Oh, I actually have one. Since we talked about CBD, I have a online survey going right now at cbdstudy.org. It's a kind of just trying to get the pulse of the athletic community. I think you have to be physically active for 5 or more hours a week, but it's like anything. You could be CrossFit, Zumba, running. You just have to be getting sweaty somehow for about 5 hours a week or more. And really, I'm just trying to kind of get the pulse of people. Are they using CBD? Do they think CBD is the devil's lettuce? Do they think CBD should be legal? Should it be illegal? And this is open for people of every country on the planet. So if you're listening to this podcast and you don't live in the United States, that's even better because I happen to know all of our laws pretty well, but I might not know the laws in your country. So I'd love to hear from you.
Good one. Yes, we'll make sure send over that link after this, and we'll drop it in the show notes for anyone who wants to help out. Good
Cool.
stuff.
Thanks.
Taryn, you got anything? You got anything else?
No, I think that's it. We're good. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you both for coming on. For those of our listeners, head over to teamstrengthspeed.com or ultra-ocrman.com. It takes you to the same website. We've just released the Ultra-OCR Man documentary by Bobby Ross. So he shot a 24-minute documentary covering 2 of the ultra endurance charity events I've did and created into a nice, beautiful storyline, beautifully shot, edited, produced, etc., all by Bobby Ross. So it came out really good. The link's on there. It's available for $9.99. Gives you access to either stream it and or download it. It gives you both, essentially. So if you're not sure if you want to watch it, and you want to see if some of Bobby's other material, you can head over to the Strength and Speed YouTube page and search for OCR Everest. That covers that's a 10-minute mini documentary. It covers the charity event I did last year. So OCR Everest is the free one on YouTube. Ultra OCR Man is the pay for one via the web. The Gumroad is the distribution platform, but you can just find it off teamstrengthspeed.com. And then we also just got in all of our Blegmet styles and sizes. So small, medium, large, light, and extreme. All of them are in stock. That will be the last resupply probably through Toughest Mudder, through the kind of early fall. So you can head over and check that out. And if you liked a lot of the endurance talk, you can check out my latest book. It's called On Endurance, available on Amazon or off the teamstrengthspeed.com website, available in digital or hard copy. Basically, I've taken lesson learned from the last 200 or so podcast episodes, condensed them into a couple of key takeaways, and made a book out of it and interviewed a bunch of OCR athletes. They have little vignettes in there so you can kind of cherry pick some of their lessons learned over the course of their racing careers. Weston and Taryn, thanks for coming on. You guys are
Thank you very much.
Wealth of knowledge. Yeah, really enjoyed hearing some of your input and picking your brains a little bit. It's been great. And best wishes on the death race. Maybe we'll hit me up after it's over, and maybe we'll do an after action report style mini episode. And
sure.
That'd be fun.
Let me know how it went and maybe some lessons learned and what you would do differently and what went well, etc.
All right.
Sounds
Sounds good.
All right, we'll catch all you later.
All right, thank you very much.
You.